Hello and welcome back to another Outlaw walkthrough. Today we're going to be discussing how to set up custom headers in Outlaw. So let's go ahead and jump into it. As you'll recall, if you've been an Outlaw or FVDA user for a while now, that typically the logo and letterhead were just standardized across the org. You kind of only got one. Obviously, you got a logo and a letterhead, but you couldn't have, multiple letterheads. Maybe you had multiple office locations. Maybe you had a letterhead for, each attorney at the firm or something like that. And so it wasn't as customizable, but recently Outlaw did release the ability to make custom headers and footers. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. So the first part is how you actually set up your custom header. The first part is you would want to navigate over to the overview. You're going to go ahead and open this up. Typically, you're always going to land on this overview here, but since we're setting up a custom header, we want to navigate over to header here. You can see I've already built in a couple, but it's really simple. Typically, it already comes with header one already kind of set up for you. And so you can type in whatever you want. If you needed to add anything additional, you can always come in here to the bottom and you can start typing your header or whatever it might look like there. And this, of course, is something you don't always have to use for a letterhead. It can just be a header that you want to include on every page. But I will say that the most use case is obviously for making it like a letterhead or something specific going forward. So you can go ahead and you can set up your letterhead. You can see here, I already have my address here. And I also have another header here as well. If you wanted to insert one from scratch, you would want to come up here to add a new section. You can either insert a 1 column or 2. Both of the ones that you see here are 1 column. So I'm going to go ahead and show you what a 2 column would look like. We'll insert that there. 2 columns are great because they work independently of each other, kind of like a caption would in FVDA. So you can come in here, you can type different things, you can format each side differently if you wanted to, just demonstrating that here. And so you kind of have a lot of options when you're doing that 2 column header if you would. Typically, when you first insert a header, you will see that it says print to no pages. This means that it is set up, but it's not actually turned on. So if you want to actually turn on this other header, you would want to come in here and navigate over to section general. Make sure you're on the correct header that you are. We can see that this one is header number 2 down here. So then I would want to change this, either to all pages, where this is going to show up obviously on all the pages of your document. And you can also pick, the kind of page count formatting if you would like to. Or you can also try these first pages here. And you can also basically let it know which of the pages that you want this to be on. So you can go through there, tell it that if it is a 5-page document, that there's going to be 5 pages only included on that first one, and kind of so on and so forth like that. So that's kind of how you can set them up. I just want to show you guys a couple things here. I'm actually going to take off these conditionalities for a second. Go ahead and delete this one. Just to show you guys what it looks like if we have multiple headers. So currently, because there's no conditionalities on these two, these are multiple headers. And when I would go and preview this, you might notice a couple things right off the bat. So let's go ahead and view this. We have header 1, header 2. We're going to preview this as PDF just because currently the headers and footers are only shown when you export as a PDF, not as like a Word doc or even as a .vine. So you'd want to come in here, view as PDF. And you can see here that I'm only showing one of those headers here. That's because you can't have 2 headers showing at the same time. So if we wanted to, we can come back in here. I'm going to change this back to the conditional variable that we had it set to, which was list of offices. We'll tell this one Texas. And then if I were to come in here, I would still only see this one because header number 2, because it doesn't have a conditional variable. But when I do run my test in FVDA, I will have the ability to see one or the other of these, header 1 or header 3 here. All right, so that's kind of how you set up those headers. I'm going to go ahead and delete this guy here just because we don't need him for the demonstration. But if you don't want to type out your letterhead, you can also opt to actually upload an image of your letterhead, and we can talk about kind of how to do that. So you can see I already have one set up here. It's just the regular Vine Skills logo. But if you aren't familiar with how to set this up, basically, the first thing you would need to do is create an outlaw variable. You can do that by starting with the open bracket. Once you start with the open bracket, you would want to give that a hashtag, and then you can name this whatever you like. Maybe we want to call this the Arizona letterhead. I'd recommend giving it a name that kind of relates to the letterhead that you're uploading or anything, just so it's easy to track on your document. So we could say that this is the Arizona letterhead. Let's go ahead and delete this one. We would next want to click into the variable. Instead of having it be a text field, we would want to change it to an image field because we're going to actually be uploading an image here. After you change it, you can see that I can upload an image. So I'd want to go over here, find my letterhead that I want to include, hit open, make sure it attaches there, and then I would hit update. Perfect. It should be updated now with that image, but we can also click back into it if we wanted to view it. You can see everything looks good there. So basically now what would happen when I actually generate this document is that I'm going to have one letterhead that's going to have this address when basically Texas is selected, and then I'm going to have this letterhead show when Arizona is selected. That's kind of demonstrates how you can use this with different office locations. Obviously, if you had multiple attorneys, you could have, your logo and then their names and contact information, over on the right-hand side, or however your letterheads look in your firm. So you could look to do this for a lot of things. And this is an outlaw variable here, and we are actually filtering off of this offices here and on the overview, but you could also pull in a FileVine connected variable. I believe we have one in here called state. So if I wanted to, I could pull in and filter off this state dropdown in my FileVine. So you kind of have a couple of different options on how you set up those conditional variables, but that is how you would do it. And if you aren't familiar with setting up conditional variables, I have another video linked here in the training section, so feel free to check that out as well. So let's go ahead and see what these look like once we generate them. So you can see now we're back in our FileVine here. Because this is the overview, it's having me select which state I want to choose. And as you'll recall, this is our conditional logic that basically determines which letterhead we'll have. As I was saying, because this is the letterhead or header is only shown when we export as a PDF, you can see that there is currently nothing showing on this .vine file. However, I've gone ahead and already exported these as PDFs so that you can see what each one of them looks like. So previously we discussed the Arizona one. That's going to be our Vine Skills logo right here. You can see that we now have this header showing on every page of our document here. So that is pretty cool. And then when it is chosen as Texas, you can see that we have this header showing for each page of our document. So that's kind of how each one of them would look once you exported it, but I hope this was helpful.